I was born in northern Germany, and I lived in a village called Geesdorf. Geesdorf had one school, one store, and one bank, and it was surrounded by forests and strawberry fields. If you think about an American city with 2,000 residents, you may think of it with a very spread out and remote layout. Geesdorf, on the other hand, had its houses built very close together, all connected by a central plaza. In our plaza, we had festivals and Christmas markets. I still remember how we celebrated the Christian holiday Pentecost. The entire village met in the plaza, and together, accompanied by a marching band, we walked into the forest where we then had barbecues and games. There was an ever-present sense of belonging in this village. This idea I will circle back on. Because of the proximity within the village, my friends were never farther than 15 minutes away. Walking and biking were more convenient than driving, as no house, school, or business was too far from one's own. Now, don't report my parents, because this is totally normal in Europe, but starting first grade, I began walking to school alone every single day. Unless it was snowing, then my mother would put me on a sled and drag me the entire way. After school, I would come home, drop my backpack off, and leave to go do whatever I wanted. Whatever I wanted was going to the store, going to the playground, or going into the forest. Now keep in mind, this was when I was 7, so it was all before smartphones and tracking devices. But I was far from the anomaly, as there was always other 7-year-olds doing the exact same thing as me, because of low traffic, sidewalks everywhere, and short distances between our destinations. In Germany, elementary school only went up till 4th grade, so I had to start attending a school that was 30 minutes away. So I began taking public transport into the city every single day. I began struggling in school, so I was signed up for after-school tutoring. Tutoring started around an hour after school ended, so after school I would walk into the city center, sit on a bench and eat ice cream or cake, and then I would take the bus home in the evening. Sometimes my adventures led to me falling into deer traps or getting caught stealing strawberries off the field. But these events gave me stories I'll never forget, and more importantly, they taught me responsibility and confidence within myself. With a parental figure often absent, I found myself with confusion and helplessness. Viktor Frankl is a psychologist who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. In it, he describes the positives to such struggles, saying, "What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task. What he needs is not the discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of a potential meaning, waiting to be fulfilled by him." I was forced to make critical decisions from a young age, whether or not to climb the 6-foot wall, or how far to go into the forest. I was making my own decisions and assessing my own risks. This gave me drive and purpose. In 2016, I moved to California, and everything was different. The cars, the food, the people, the houses. The food had hormones, preservatives, food coloring, red 40. And all the food here is slightly sweet, even the tomato sauce, which I find so disturbing. Moreover, the cashiers here actually look at you during checkout, because in Germany, the only time the cashiers will look at you is while handing you your bill. But the biggest difference apparent to me was the way in which cities were built to support cars over people. For example, the McDonald's and movie theater are built next to each other, but they are separated by 4 lanes of fast-moving cars and traffic. Walking is possible, but it often feels uncomfortable and unnatural, as you are forced to traverse amongst cars and SUVs going 45 miles an hour. I went from an 11-year-old that made all their own decisions and choices to someone bound to my parents. Such a concept may seem normal, even essential, but is simply not demonstrated throughout most of the world, especially in Europe. In Germany, I had the option to go anywhere I wanted at any time. Now, I was forced to wait for my parents to drive me, and I often felt trapped as entertainment required a car to access. I often found myself waiting in my room until someone could drive me. Viktor Frankl would describe this state as tensionless, as I was simply existing within my own 4 walls. After 4 years of living in California, I was able to visit Hanover, the large city near Geesdorf. Although I'm German, this incited a massive culture shock within me. I was able to use the extensive subway and streetcar system to take the train and go anywhere with my friends. The simple interactions I had with people entering and exiting the train added to a sense of community and togetherness. For me, basically everything was turned upside down. Overnight, I went from barely leaving the house unless someone wanted to go to the store to being able to go anywhere. We took bikes from my friend's house in a smaller city, and within 15 minutes, a bike path through a beautiful forest led us into the heart of Hanover, where we hung out from morning to night. Many roads were winding and paved with cobblestone. Not only did this provide a beautiful scene, but it discouraged driving, allowing us to freely wander. A commonality with many Western European cities are the plazas lined with cafes where people stretch out their tiny coffees to sit, contemplate, and people watch. Not only are such actions vital for relaxation, but they provide you with a place to gather and observe the world and its people. Being in Germany instilled me with a feeling of adventure, what Viktor Frankl would describe as tension, manifested to me as a childhood feeling of being on my own and making my own decisions. Returning to California, I got my license believing it would open up a sense of freedom. But I often found myself so frustrated because I had to drive up to 15 minutes between my destinations and way longer with traffic. What bothers me is our car-free spaces have to be specially built and improved and usually only exist in the form of malls. A walkable space that is not simply focused on shopping, but everyday uses helps you gather and provides a place for community. A city built for humans brings humans together. This idea of community, which I was talking about earlier, factors in with Viktor Frankl's definition of purpose. Interacting with a community, interacting with its people and its nature gives man fulfillment, purpose, and identity. I know every man's purpose is different, but those who feel like they have none are likely lacking the feeling of a community. Many teenagers growing up in the suburbs will likely find themselves in a similar state of loneliness that I found myself in when I first moved here. However, I saw that finding places to walk, sit, and read are so beneficial in finding your happiness. Finding places to experience a community help you engage in the world and its people, and tearing apart from what you perceive as your world can be so beneficial in finding your meaning. Thank you.